Hello and welcome back to Vertex Solutions, and welcome to the part 2 video training series Server 2022. In this video we're going to discuss about what is Active Directory domain services are, and we're going to install the basic installation and configuration of Active Directory. So this is your host Muhammad Farooq. So yesterday the video part 1 video we did the installation of Server 2022 in a VMware workstation. We discussed about what are the minimal requirements to install a server. We also discussed about the licensing model available and what kind of server models are available. Like we have Server 2022 12 Standard Edition, we have a Data Center Edition and Essential Edition. So let's get started. If you like the video, please click on like or subscribe. So starting with the definition, Active Directory is a simple definition of Active Directory would be a service by Microsoft. So this Active Directory is actually a Microsoft product, so owned by Microsoft and runs on Microsoft platform. Means you can only install and configure Active Directory in Windows server side servers, any kind of server flavor. But if you're running Server 2016 onwards, there are a few changes which we're going to discuss about that. So the simple definition of Active Directory would be, as I mentioned earlier, by Microsoft, which acts as a central repository and stores all data related to objects like AD, users, computers, servers, and any other resources within your organization. It makes administration pretty easy for the system admins. The primary function is to provide a way to authenticate users and machines in a domain environment. Using Active Directory resources like user workstations and their permissions can be managed remotely. Hence, it's a single manager interface that is accessible from anywhere on the network. It's a feature of Microsoft primarily, but other OS can also participate into a limited degree. For example, you can connect Linux or Unix machine into the Active Directory environment using LDAP. One of the main component is the creation of domains. In a simple word, a domain can be called as a collection of structure of all AD objects like users, computers, groups, etc., sharing the common AD database and is managed by the main servers of the domain, which is called domain controllers. A domain is always referred to by a unique name and it has a proper name structure. In, for example, vertexsolution.local. So this is, I'm going to show you some diagram, but let's talk about the key component. There's some few key components are like groups, users, computers, authentication, service, group policies, DNS, and DHCP. In this diagram, I'm going to explain you so this slide shows you the concept of Active Directory. So just think like Active Directory is like a forest, right? You have one forest. In that forest you have trees are called domains, and then OUs, users, these are the stems on the tree, and OUs and the users are the leaves. So just keep this in mind. So when you design a new Active Directory in a green field, green means it's a new environment, so you will have one forest. Once you install Active Directory, you will see it will create a forest for you, and within the forest you need to pick a domain name. So let's say in our case we are saying vertexsolutions.com or .net. You can have a domain, you can also have a subdomain. So in a bigger enterprise you might see a subdomain, but small to medium companies normally you see just one domain and you don't see subdomain because they don't have like thousands of users. And with that, every machine. So once you install, Active Directory, I'll show you in the slide coming soon. Once you show the Active Directory is installed, now every machine which you need to control through Active Directory, that machine needs to join to the domain, like in our case is vertexsolution.com. If you don't join that machine to the domain, you won't be able to log in to that domain and you won't be able to control those computers and users through Active Directory policies. So you'll get clear in the next coming slides. Now I know this next coming topic is off, like it's not like related directly, but just to give you the idea, if you are a basic system admin, just managing, creating users is different than when you work as a solution architect or a designer. So sometimes companies hire you as just a regular administrator, where you come in, create users, day-to-day operations, manage servers, add DCs, fix any issues comes on domain controllers, people can get authenticated, create new users, create group policies, etc. But sometimes you get a job where some company they have a merger, means they merge with another company, and they call consultants to get some advice and help them to transition or merge those two companies. So each company, let's say, have their own forest, two separate forests. So there are different design concepts you can utilize. I'm going to quickly explain you just a rough idea of how this thing works. So let's say if there are two mergers happen between two companies. So the one way is to, by my experience, you can create a new forest. So you have two forests, company 1, company 2. Then you create a third forest, and then you can bring those objects from forest 1, forest 2 to forest 3, which is the new company. That's the one way to design AD. Another way is to take a bigger step approach. It's called, like, let's say company 1 has more objects, it's bigger than the smaller company. Then you can migrate the smaller company AD objects to the newer, like the bigger company's AD. And the last one is keep it as it is. You don't want to merge the AD objects together, and you can have a site-to-site connectivity and then make a trust between both forests, so users can share the resources in the cross-forest scenario. Same thing when some companies, let's say a corporation sold one of the department, and they want to split the AD objects. So again, you can create a new forest and migrate the users to the new forest, and then migrate, let's say company, move those objects from the source company, let's say forest 1, to a separate forest. Or you can migrate. So let's say if the company which split is going to under another company which already have AD forest, then you can migrate to the new existing forest. It's just to give you the idea. I know it's a bit it's more than for you to digest, so but I just want to go through it. I have seen people doesn't have idea, especially this junior admins. So the key concept is the design. If you're a good designer, you will excel in your field. You'll go in a higher position. So my idea to making this slide is to give you the conceptual ideas of how to design AD or how to redesign AD based on the company to company, and again it varies, right? So let's start with the installation. So let me bring up my VMware workstation. If you remember, in last series we did install the server name VHSDC. So let me log in with my credentials. Okay, now there are different ways you can install Active Directory domain services through PowerShell, or you can go through the GUI interface. Well, I always prefer to go through GUI because if you have things, you can see it. You don't want to do mistakes. You can just quickly come here and do it. So for any roles to add and delete, you just you can go to dashboard, and then you can pick the add roles or features, or you can go through manage, then add roles and it's the same thing. So by default it says before you begin, and some information window, go next. We're going to install a role, pick that server which is VSDC01. Okay, so you click on pick the server, click next. Now we're going to pick Active Directory domain services. This is a core component of Active Directory. So it stores information and objects on the network and makes this information available to all users. So AD domain services use domain controllers to give network users access to permitted resources anywhere on the network through a single login process. So very important component. So once you click on that, it says, do you want to install the administration tools? Of course, we need those tools. So we're gonna say add feature, then click next. By default it picks group policy management because you need GP group policy with Active Directory so you can control users and machines. So I'm going to install it. It takes a couple of minutes and then it's going to install. Now once the tools are installed, once the roles are installed, so the next step would be to promote the server to as a domain controller. By just installing the role doesn't mean your Active Directory is ready. You have to promote this server to become a domain controller. When you do that, it will ask you, if it's a new environment, it will ask you to create a new forest with a domain name and then a couple of configuration information. But if it's a existing one, then once you promote a DC, it will ask you to join the existing one. So I'll show you in coming slides. So if you see here, you see the options promote. So let me just close it. Once you close, you will see an option which says post configure required services, so promote. So I'm going to click on promote. So it's going to promote this. So it says add a domain controller to an existing domain. So if you already have a domain controller AD model already installed, you're going to do it. Now I'm going to say add a new forest. So I'll say vertexsolutions.com. Let me do it .local just in case. So this is a root level domain as I showed you in my slides. So it's gonna automatically check this domain DNS services and global catalog. Global catalog, when you have a server with a global catalog role, that server you can create users, create different objects, and it will let you create. But if you just create a domain controller or promote a server, just a read-only domain controller, you can only read, you cannot write. So let me enter a password in case there's issues, so I can restore. Click on next. Just ignore this is a standard error. It says the parent zone is not there. We will create those zones. Next is going to pick up automatically the Vertex Solutions name. If you need to read more about these things, just click on this. It will take you to Microsoft website and you can read in detail. Now during the process of installing AD, it will create a database folder, a log folder, and a sysvol. Now these three folders are very critical. So I urge everyone not to change these, let it go as a default folder, because I've seen issues where I as an admin work in this company, install AD, and later on I leave the company, next person comes in, and if I change the location, sometimes I've seen issues people finding, and then there's always a way to find, but it's always a good practice to keep everything in the same default location. So click next. It will just give you the overview of what you have configured. So I say Vertex Solutions.local, global catalog yes, DNS yes. And you can also use a script, if you need to run through PowerShell script. This is a script. Instead of going through the wizard, you can just do this, right? And it will create AD domain services for you. Say next. Now here it will verify the prerequisite for the domain controllers, what are the minimum requirements are, and then it will start the installation process. Now if you see, this is the old, you can safely ignore this information. It says Windows NT 4, it's already gone, no more support, but still Microsoft keep it in case someone is running, you know, those older operating systems for some authentication purpose. So a delegation, so there are a few things which we will configure because this is our first new DC. I'll just say install. It's gonna go install the Active Directory, you know, domain services, all the prerequisites, create the database, create the log files, create the sysvol. Once that is done, it will reboot the server, and our server will be ready for with the Active Directory model installed. So another couple of minutes it will give you the warning, and then it might restart automatically. I believe, yeah, it will give you the option to sign. Okay, so here you go. So computer is being restarted. So once the AD services is installed, it's going to restart the server to make sure the server joins to the Active Directory model and becomes a member of the AD. So the first domain controller, when you install, it will become automatically joined, but the rest of the machines, additional domain controllers, PCs, you have to join the machines through computer properties. I'll explain you those, or I'll show you those. So let me pause the video, come back, and once the server is ready. Alright, the server is back, booted up with the AD. So when I say Control Alt Delete, that shows me Vertex Solutions, that the machine is joined to the domain. So let me log in with the password. Remember, this will be a domain administrator password. Now let's see what kind of, once the AD installed, what kind of roles are being installed. So there are five different roles. The very major commonly used day-to-day operations is Active Directory users and computers. So let me open that. This is where you create all your users, objects, organization, units. So there are a few built-in roles installed by default. There are some built-in users installed by default. Because this is the only domain controller we have, so it shows you DC, and it's a GC global catalog, means it can read and write. The site name is default site, so we're gonna update our site name too. So let's go back and then open Active Directory sites and services. So here we will see the site name. So this is very commonly used when you have multiple sites, means you have site in Toronto, in Dubai, in Australia. So this is the first site in the head office. I'm going to rename it to Toronto. So you can also create, let's say, future sites in advance, you know, site Dubai. There is a default link. I'll explain you how you can change those. That's fine. Just say okay, and I'll add the subnets. So when you install another these domain controller, you know, as promoted, it will give you the option during the install to pick the site. So mostly that's how it is. So sites are, once you have different sites, the Active Directory replication happens between domain control. If all domain controls are on the main side, if you create any user in one DC, it will replicate very instantly. But if you have a DC in Toronto where you do a changes, and you have DC in Dubai, the default time is 180 minutes. It's a cycle, or you can forcefully run some PowerShell commands to sync it. So there's also a link we can set based on the replication, and then we can also change the timings for those. So I'll explain you all those coming soon. Now the third option is Active Directory modules for Windows PowerShell, for any PowerShell work, domain and trust. So when you have initially, if you remember, I mentioned multi-4S. So if you have companies, you have a merger, and if you want to trust to each other's domain Active Directory model forest. So you come here and configure. So before that, there are some prerequisites, like you have to have a site-to-site VPN connectivity, so you can connect to, or you can ping to the other server. There's a network path there, you can access those servers, and also some DNS forwarding, etc. Apart from that, let me just show you. If I go to properties, you can also have some alternate VPN suffix. Instead of vertexsolution.com, you can have abc.com, and it will show up in your AD once we create the users. I'll explain these features too. So this is where you create a trust between two. So once you have an established network connection to the different company, you can always come in and create a trust relation. This is another topic we will discuss further in future. So basically, domain trust is for connecting to different Active Directory and creating some custom VPN suffix. Then another option we have is Active Directory Administrative Services. This is a new feature being introduced in 2012 onwards. The beautiful thing, whenever I install Active Directory, the first thing I normally do is to make sure I enable the Active Directory recycle bin. This is a very handy tool, so make sure when you go to join any new company where you're gonna design the new AD, or you have already joined a company where you have existing Active Directory installed, you go in and make sure their recycle bin is enabled. The benefit is that so if you by mistake you delete a user, you can always come and recover quickly instead of restoring it from the backup. There are a lot of backup tools available, but if this feature is there, why not enable it? So this is a very handy administration access center where you can do a lot of stuff. So this is all about installation of Active Directory domain services and configuring the domain controller. There are a lot of components like DNS, DHCP, so those will be coming next. For now, that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and if you like the channel, please click on subscribe, and we'll be releasing the part 2-3 soon. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Thanks for watching Vertex Solutions.